हजरत ख्वाजा संग खेलिए धमाल हजरत ख्वाजा संग खेलिए धमाल हजरत ख्वाजा संग खेलिए धमाल बाईस ख्वाजाओं मिल बना बनायो बाईस ख्वाजाओं मिल बना बनायो ताम हज़रत
अल्लाहुम्मा तह्हिर क़ल्बी अन ग़ैरिका व नव्विर क़ल्बी बिनूर मारिफ़तिका अबदन या अल्लाह या अल्लाह या अल्लाह अस्तग़फ़िरुल्लाह अल्लज़ी ला इलाहा इल्ला हुवल हय्युल क़य्यूम व अतूबु इलैहि ला हौला वला कुव्वता इल्ला बिल्लाहिल अलिय्यिल अज़ीम।
Islamic mysticism or Sufism represents the struggle for the moral and spiritual upliftment of society. Sufism is based on the word Suf, which means pure, an attribute essential for being one with the Lord. In Islam, Sufism achieved the status of a movement which had its origins in Central Asian and Persian countries and then found its way into India through the establishment of various orders or silsilas like the Chishtiyas, Naqshbandiyas and Qadariyas. The founders of these silsilas came directly from the Central Asian and Persian centers of Islamic mystic thought, who then molded these thoughts into the Indian social, economic and emotional fabric of India. The essence of all Sufism is cosmic emotion, and all Sufis exhorted people to throw themselves into the ocean of love.
لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله.
Bhakti, Marifat or Gnosis is the spiritual knowledge of oneness. This path of oneness is marked by stages, the direction for which is given by the Peer. One of the important stages is Zikr, in which the Peer leads his murid into a state of cosmic emotion by continuously reciting the name of Allah. Each silsila may differ in the exact tenets of Zikr, but the practice remains common to all silsilas, be it the Chishtiya, Soharwardiya or the Firdausiya.
The Chishtiya silsila in India was founded by Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti, who was born in Sijistan but spent considerable time in places like Samarkand and Bukhara at the feet of the learned Sufi mystics. The word Chishtiya is itself derived from the name of a village called Chisht near Harat. Moinuddin Chishti came into India in the 12th century and founded the Chishtiya silsila near Ajmer. The essence of the Chishtiya philosophy is Wahadat ul-Wujud, which means unity of being. It rejects Tark-e-Dunya or worldly possessions and strongly advocates pacifism or non-violence. It also advocates Muhabbat-e-Khas, which is love for the Lord, and is reflected in the following verse. I wish that I may always have my loyalty to you. I wish I were a speck of dust and were under your feet. My goal is you. It is for you I live, and for you I die.
Khwaja Muinuddin Chishti came to Ajmer after receiving an order from the Prophet, may peace be upon him, to proceed to a place that resembles Medina and spread the message of Allah. Obstacles beset him, and he finally reached Ajmer, a desert town situated amid mountains not unlike Medina. The Chishtiya saint spread the message of love and devotion. Drawn by faith, people flocked to Muinuddin Chishti, and the Dargah, where he lies buried, attracts large number of devotees, rich or poor, rulers or the ruled. Till today, these saints are revered, for people come here to have their wishes fulfilled. Based on the Sufi tradition, various rituals were evolved at the shrine. The shrine is looked after by a group of priestly attendants or khadims who perform the daily khidmat of the shrine or the ritual of cleansing. These khadims or priests trace their lineage directly from the saint. The Chishtiya Silsila is enhanced by the Sama or Qawwali, which is held every Thursday in the Dargah. However, on any day, groups of Qawwals or singers are found offering their praise and prayers to the saint. On the Urs, which is the death anniversary of the saint, thousands place their offerings on the mazar of the great saint. Processions of people mark the Urs ceremony. The system of cooking food in large cauldrons or dags was first introduced by the Mughal Emperor Akbar. The food is cooked by a special group of people called the Andar Koti. Since the 18th century, the tradition of cooking saffron sweet rice in these dags has been continuing to this day.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.
Namaz or prayers are offered regularly at the dargah.
किस दर को तरसती है ये दर है कि इस दर पे कुर्बान
In the evening, the dargah is lit up by the ceremony of Roshni or illumination. At Ajmer, Moinuddin Chishti, or Garib Nawaz as he is known, propagated liberal views, welcoming all, including women. Late at night, often after 10 p.m., is the Karka ceremony, or the closing of doors. The whole tomb is cleared by the khadims, while the pilgrims wait outside. As the doors are locked, the kawwals stand up and start reciting the Karka verses in Bhojpuri dialect. One legend has it that the Karka was composed by Sheikh Mitha, who lived during the reign of Emperor Jahangir. From Central Asia to Ajmer, Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti's teachings merged the thought processes of Sufism with local ethos and customs, making the Chishtiya Silsila immensely popular and open to people of all religions. The Khwaja's movement coincided with the emerging Bhakti movement in India. Therefore, people flock here from both India and Central Asia to pay homage to the saint. Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti appointed Khwaja Bakhtiyar Kaki as his successor, who on the directions of his Peer came to Delhi. He established his Khanka, or center of learning, in Mehrauli, behind the famed Qutub Minar. Qutubuddin Bakhtiyar Kaki belonged to Uzb, a place in Uzbekistan, and in his early days visited many Central Asian centers of mystical thought. It is here that he met his contemporary, the Soharwardi saint Qadi Hamiduddin Nagori, who lies buried next to him at the Dargah of Bakhtiyar Kaki in Delhi. The Khwaja was impressed by Sama, which was opposed by the Orthodox ulema. He therefore traveled through Persian lands to verify from the religious clerics that Sama is allowed by the Sharia. The mazhub element predominated Qutubuddin's life to such an extent that he died at an early age while listening to the following verse sung in Sama. The Qawwal recited this verse of the Persian poet Sheikh Ahmad Jam. Those slain by the dagger of submission every moment get a new life from the unseen. This line so captivated the saint that he remained dumbfounded for 4 days, and on the 5th he died, when the Qawwals were asked not to repeat the verse anymore. In Sufi tradition, he became a martyr to love. The death anniversary of the saint is celebrated as the Urs For the Sufis believe that in death they are one with the Lord. On the occasion of the Urs, a chadar is brought from the dargah of Sheikh Moinuddin Chishti of Ajmer to be laid on the mazar of Sheikh Bakhtiyar Kaki, from the Peer to his murid. The chadar is taken in a procession and finally laid on the mazar. Thousands throng the dargah on this day to be a part of the holy procession. On the unexpected death of Qutubuddin Bakhtiyar Kaki, his successor was Fariduddin Ganje Shakhar, who founded his khanqa in Ajodhan, a village in Punjab. He too was invited to head the Chishtiya Silsila in Delhi itself. Then why did he choose Ajodhan?
निज़ामुद्दीन औलिया से पहले बाबा फरीद गंज शकर भी दरअसल दिल्ली ही में बिठाए गए थे। उनके पीर ख्वाजा कुतुबुद्दीन बख्तियार काकी दिल्ली ही में थे और उनकी गद्दी उनको मिली तो उनको दिल्ली ही में बैठना था और वो दिल्ली में आकर उस गद्दी पर बैठे थे। लेकिन एक वाक़या ऐसा हुआ जिसकी वजह से वो दिल्ली छोड़कर चले गए। वाक़या ये हुआ कि वो पहले हाँसी में रहते थे। वहाँ एक हिंदू उनका अक़ीदतमंद था जिसका नाम सरहंगा था। वो दिल्ली उनसे मिलने के लिए आया। दिल्ली चूँकि कैपिटल था, बड़ी आबादी थी यहाँ की, यहाँ इतनी भीड़ रहती थी उनके पास, सुबह से शाम तक इतने लोग आते थे कि 2-3 रोज़ तक उनके वो दर्शन नहीं कर सका और उनके पैर नहीं चूम सका वो। तो 2-3 दिन के बाद ये कहीं बाहर जा रहे थे निकल के, तो रास्ते में वो आया, पैरों में गिर गया और कहा कि जब हाँसी में थे आप तो रोज़ दर्शन हो जाते थे, रोज़ आपका दीदार कर लेते थे और दिल्ली में अब 3 दिन के बाद आप तक पहुँच सका हूँ, इतना परेशान रहा मैं। तो हज़रत ने कहा जहाँ लोग हम तक ना पहुँच सकें हम ऐसी जगह नहीं रहेंगे।
The most eminent of his disciples was Sheikh Nizamuddin Aulia. In humor, in pathos, in love, in poetry, he was the exemplar, whom many believe as the greatest Indo-Muslim saint of all times. Sheikh Nizamuddin propounded that real happiness lay in forgiveness. He cited the verse of Sheikh Abu Said, "He who puts thorns in my way on account of enmity, may every flower that blossoms in the garden of his life be without thorns." His stature was enhanced by the contribution of his murids, like Amir Khusro, whose mazar is next to that of his peer. Amir Khusro, a multifaceted genius whose work was often inspired by Persian poets like Hafiz and Sadi. The elan of Persian poetry was towards moral rejuvenation of society. The life breath of poetry of Sadi, Rumi and Iraqi was their restless concern for humanity. The poetry of Amir Khusro echoes the spirit generated by these masters. Amir Khusro composed poetry from the confluence of Turkish, Persian, Arabic, Braj Bhasha and Khadi Boli. The Dargah of Nizamuddin Aulia and his murid Amir Khusro is a center of pilgrimage for people from all over the world.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Ya Rasulullah undur halana. Ya Habiballah isma qalana. Innani fi bahri hammin mughraqin. Khuz yadi sahil lana ishqalana. Ya Huzur Hazrat Sultanul Mashayikh Khwaja Khwajan Khwaja Sayyid Nizamuddin Auliya Zar Zarbakhsh Mehboob Ilahi, ये सब लोग आपके दरबार के अंदर हाजिर हैं, इन सब की ज़ियारतों को कबूल फरमाइए। या गरीब नवाज आपके आस्थान आलिया के अंदर जो कुछ भी दिली तमन्नाएं, दिली ख्वाहिशात हैं, दिली आरज़ू हैं, दिली मुरादें लेके आए, उन सब को पूरा फरमा दीजिए।
मोरा जो बनाना वेलेरा भरो है गुलाल, मोरा जो बनाना वेलेरा भरो है गुलाल। कैसे दर्द बगस मोरी माल, कैसे दर्द बगस मोरी माल, मोरा जो बनाना वेलेरा। निजामुद्दीन औलिया को, निजामुद्दीन औलिया को कोई समझाए जो जो मनाऊं, कोई समझाए जो जो मनाऊं, वो तो
During the Urs ceremony, the Dargah is soaked with the spirit of belief that inspires people to pay homage to the great saint.
I come to the Dargah of Hazrat Nizamuddin Aulia as often as I can, for I find solace and peace in my heart. The Dargah has the atmosphere where I get peace of mind and find solutions to my problems. So whenever I am in India, I make it a point to visit the Dargah.
During the recital of the classical music, as distinct from the qawwalis, the presence of the peer recreates the aura of devotion. The system of the peer-murid relationship also becomes evident in the offerings of the devotees to the peer during the sama. The water tank in the Dargah complex is believed to have miraculous powers. It was built when the Emperor Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq was building his fort. He forbade the builders to work for Hazrat Nizamuddin. However, the masons started working at night to build the water tank, which upset the emperor. He then forbade the shops to provide oil for the lamps, for he believed that if there was no oil, there would be no lamps, and so no work would be done at night. By this time, the water tank had been dug to such an extent that the water had started gushing out. The disciple of the Hazrat, who was supervising the building of the tank, started putting water instead of oil to light the lamp. Therefore, this disciple was called Roshan Chirag. Sheikh Nasiruddin Chirag, the murid of Nizamuddin Aulia, established his khanqa in Delhi. During the 13th century, Ibn al-Arabi's doctrines were introduced in India, with ideas of Wahadat al-Wujud being the basis of spiritual experience. The pantheistic school of thought believed that God is everywhere and is reflected in all beings. This led to a stir of Muslim religious thought by the orthodox ulema. Roshan Chirag, therefore, tried to bridge the gap between the mystics and the orthodoxy.
The conflict between the pantheistic thoughts and the orthodox views led to an upsurge in literary works and philosophies by the saints of the next 2 centuries. While the pantheistic school of thought was a perfect platform for Hindu-Muslim amity, the orthodoxy feared that this might jeopardize Islam. It marked the end of an era, and sects like the Naqshbandiyas came into being with different philosophies and attitudes.
हज़रत ख्वाजा संग खेलिए धमाल हज़रत ख्वाजा संग खेलिए धमाल हज़रत ख्वाजा संग खेलिए धमाल बाये.
The streams of thought in the late 14th and 15th century reflected a change in the spiritual mood and literary tempo of the Sufi saints. The Chishtiya Silsila was added a new dimension by the contributions of Mir Sayyid Ashraf Jahangir Simnani, who came from Simnan, a town in Persia, at the age of 23. The Sayyid, who settled in the hamlet of Kichocha in Uttar Pradesh, came here after visiting the Sufi centers in Iran, Iraq and Central Asia, where he had been the disciple of Alauddaulah Simnani, the Central Asian Kubravi saint. It was in the late 14th century that Simnani and Sayyid Ali Hamdani migrated to India. The Dargah of the Sayyid stands reflectively, contemplating on the times of the Chishtiya saint. Ashraf Simnani popularized the use of the Persian term Hama-ust, thus emphasizing that anything other than God did not exist. Ashraf Jahangir wrote extensively on spiritual matters. He, however, was also a trained exorcist, and till today, Kichocha Sharif is a center for the mentally disturbed to find solace and peace. The writings of Ashraf Jahangir Simnani marked the shift of the Chishtiya Silsila towards fervous discussion, which has been greatly influenced by the Persian poets. Another Chishtiya saint, Sayyid Gesudaraz of Gulbarga, adopted views contrary to those of the earlier Chishtiya saints. Sayyid Gesudaraz, who came to Gulbarga, a town in the south of India, at the age of 82, was one of the most distinguished among Sheikh Nasiruddin Chirag-e-Dilli's disciples. The most important aspect of Sufism to Gesudaraz was simplification of the self and an exclusive interest in God.
The most reliable source for his being surnamed as Gesudaraz is related by Sayyid Ashraf Jahangir Simnani of Kachocha Sharif. So in one of his letters, he has mentioned the Sayyid families who were living in India during that time. And in that he mentions that there is one family here of Gesudaraz who comes from Khurasan, his ancestors, and in Khurasan itself his family was known, Gesudaraz's family was known as Sadat-e Diraz-e-Gisu, meaning Sayyids with long locks. And he says that Gesudaraz got his name not in India but in his native town.
A significant feature of the Khanka of Sayyid Gesudaraz was the Peer-Murid relationship, like the Guru-Chela relationship in Indian mysticism. It signifies a triangular concept between God, the preceptor, and his disciple. Gesudaraz further explains that the imagery of the sun in clear water is vivid, but it cannot be reflected if it shines on an opaque wall. The peer is like the waves, and the walls are like the disciple. If the wall stands next to the water, the sun might be reflected on it through the water. Gesudaraz's writings include those in Arabic, Persian, and even Sanskrit. His books are today housed in the library at Gulbarga. The Dargah also houses other relics of the Prophet, may peace be upon him, which are only opened once a year for thousands of pilgrims to see. The relics are the athar, or effects of the Prophet, may peace be upon him. They include the footmarks of the Prophet, may peace be upon him, a ring worn by Ali, and the calligraphic writings of Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, the grandsons of the Prophet, may peace be upon him. It is not, however, known when and how these relics came to Gulbarga.
He has been the first Sufi in India to have propagated non-pantheistic Sufism, for which Ahmad Sir Hindi is known, and he is sort of a precursor to Ahmad Sir Hindi.
Khwaja Bahauddin Naqshband died in 1389 and was buried at the Qasr-e-Arfan near Bukhara. His tomb had become a thriving rendezvous for Sufis and other Muslims. People of all sections come to this tomb. Today the people of Bukhara remember the teachings of the great saint and also of one of his disciples, Khwaja Nasiruddin Ubaidullah Ahrar. In fact, the Indian Naqshbandiyas traced a spiritual descent from him. When Babur came to India in 1526, it gave considerable impetus to the development of the Naqshbandiya order. The disciples at the Khanqahs are taught the principles of the Naqshbandiya Silsila. Seekers of Jawahid should strive to dedicate themselves to the Prophet, may peace be upon him, that their entire selves, including their hearts, are devoid of anything but God.
The Naqshbandiya Silsila is still one of the most popular in Central Asia. This order came into India through Khwaja Baqi Billah of Kabul, who had spent considerable time at Samarkand. It was left to his disciple, Ahmad Sarhindi, to make the Naqshbandi Silsila popular in India. Ahmad Sarhindi gave the Silsila a distinctive ideology, a motive power, and an effective organization. And the Silsila flourished for 2 centuries from the 15th century onwards. He propounded his theory of Wahadat al-Shahud, or unity of the phenomenal world.
Ahmad Sarhindi spent a few months with Khwaja Baqi Billah in Delhi. He then returned to Sarhind in Punjab, where he withdrew from the world to lead a puritanically orthodox life. Ahmad Sarhindi, also known as Mujaddidi Alfi-Thani, or the reformer of the 2nd millennium, expanded the order such that his disciples reached every town and city of India. Ahmad Sarhindi gave the Naqshbandiya Silsila a distinct ideology, and Khwaja Baqi Billah firmly believed that the seed of mystical achievements brought from Bukhara and Samarkand and sown in Indian soil would blossom due to Sheikh Ahmad Sarhindi. The Naqshbandiyas developed a dynamic and assertive outlook. Contact with the rulers and the state was encouraged. He disassociated himself from Sama. His followers till today come to his mazar in the beautiful town of Sarhind from all over the world. Khwaja Masoom, whose mazar is near his father's, continued to increase the influence of the Naqshbandiya order in India. On the Urs of Khwaja Masoom, people come from all parts of the world. Continuing with Naqshbandiya Silsila, there is, however, no Sama, only offerings by the people themselves. Today, the town of Sarhind is a center of pilgrimage for the Hindus, Sikhs, and Muslims alike. the dargah is also called Madina Sani, or the second Medina. The Naqshbandiya silsila is very popular in Central Asia, Afghanistan, Turkey, Syria, and parts of the Indian subcontinent like Kashmir. A prominent Naqshbandiya who left his mark on the Muslims of Kashmir was Khwaja Khwand Mahmud Naqshbandi, who had descended from one of the disciples of Khwaja Bahuddin Naqshband. Khwaja Khwand performed ascetic exercises at the tomb of Khwaja Naqshband. Thereafter, he was given the responsibility of doing missionary work for the Naqshbandiya silsila. By a divine act of God, the Khwaja found himself in Kashmir. The Khwaja's name spread far and wide. Until today, he is revered as the greatest Naqshbandiya saint in Kashmir. The other saints who made a mark in Kashmir are Ali Ahmad Hamdani, a saint who had come to India from Central Asia along with Sayyid Ashraf Jahangir Simnani. Like his peer, Hamdani wrote extensively on theoretical and philosophical issues.
وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين.
The Firdausiya silsila in India was established by Badr al-Samarkandi. Bihar emerged as the chief center of the Firdausiya silsila. Shaifuddin Yahya Maneri emerged as the chief propagator of the Firdausiya silsila. He was an erudite scholar and believed in the Unitarian theory of everything is him.
At Maner, a tiny village away from Patna, is the place of birth of the Firdausiya saint Sharfuddin Yahya Maneri. This edifice houses the tomb of Sheikh Yahya Maneri, the father of Sharfuddin Maneri. As with the trends of the 14th century, the saint wrote profusely on a range of mystical experiences within Islam in the Maktubat-e-Sadi, or the 100 Letters. No other saint of medieval India has inspired as many literary writings as this Firdausiya saint. Just outside this edifice is the house where Sharfuddin was born. At a young age, he sought enlightenment from the Firdausiya saint Najibuddin Firdausi. On his return to Bihar, Sharfuddin became so dazzled by the lights of insight that he spent 15 to 20 years in the jungles of the Rajgir hills. Amidst lush green trees, the green tomb dargah of Shah Waris at Deva Sharif brings into its fold the vibrant traditions of Hindus and Muslims alike. Shah Waris, being a 20th century saint, was in fact liberal in his belief and welcomed people of all religions into the fold of Varsis, an order established by him. On the Urs of the saint, people merge at the Dargah in a feeling of oneness. In fact, the traditions of Hindus and Muslims are amalgamated such that there is no difference. It was devotion that was propagated rather than the orthodox tenets of Islam. Sama or Qawwali was a form of devotional prayers which attracted the Hindus as they were familiar with kirtans and bhajans.
महबूब रब्बुल आलमीन वारिसे अस्सलाम शान अल्लाह हुस्मद अच्छे औरों के और बुरे सब मेरे मेरे वारिस का फरमान तो फिर गम काहेगा मेरे वारिस का फरमान वारिस का फरमान तो फिर गम काहेगा वारिस का फरमान तो फिर गम काहेगा अच्छे अच्छे औरों के और बुरे सब मेरे हैं अच्छे अच्छे औरों के और बुरे सब मेरे हैं अच्छे अच्छे औरों के और बुरे सब मेरे हैं अच्छे अच्छे औरों के और बुरे सब मेरे हैं अच्छे अच्छे औरों के और बुरे सब मेरे हैं मेरे वारिस का फरमान तो फिर गम काहेगा वारिस का फरमान अरे हमारे वारिस का फरमान अरे हमारे वारिस का फरमान हमारे वारिस का फरमान फिर गम काहेगा वारिस का फरमान तो फिर गम काहेगा
Sufism today is an amalgam of the tenets of the various rivers of thought that merge into an ocean of belief. This ocean of belief is reflected in the saints of the 20th century. This trend has been carried on in the Khanqa of Sufi Liaquat Hussain in Bahsori, a hamlet in northern Uttar Pradesh. The Urs is celebrated as a chiraga, or the lighting of 1,000 earthen lamps. People join in to light up the entire edifice, in fact reminding one of the Hindu festival of Diwali. The Pir initiates the lighting ceremony, accompanied by chantings from the Holy Quran. He places the first diya on the mazar of his ancestor. It is followed by the sama and dancing by the murids called raqs. It is believed that for some, raqs is to achieve ecstasy, while for others, it follows ecstasy. The Chiraga is truly an exemplar of devotion and belief of the murid in the saint, who is believed to be the route to salvation.